Hello, everybody, wherever you are, you're most welcome to my show. Today, the topic today is um, is one of the most challenging topics that I've ever carried, and I'll present it slowly, step by step, because the very challenging topic. This one we go deep into medical school. You see what doctors learn in the medical school. All right. So I want to say that, in my show, I want to be addressing some most academic topics, okay, that have appeal to everyday life, okay. Academic in the sense of academic, like in the sense of if someone is a student, is dealing with topics such as topics, is learning those topics, or is about or is supposed to learn those topics, can watch a show like this and get a, a lesson from there, and can understand and can apply, okay, to what he is learning directly in his school. So during his training, can have a clear picture what is exactly about the lessons that he's taking. So in the same way, people that are not there in the colleges or training institutions can watch a show like this and be able to apply in everyday life. But today, this is one of the most challenging topics. It's about medical, and this is what doctors learn. Okay, I'm not talking about something else, but this is exactly what doctors learn in their colleges. Thank you so much. First of all, I have to greet everybody. Thank you. How are you? Hello, hello, wherever you are. Bon dia, bon dia. Como está bo? Jambo, jambo. Nzuri yako. Jambo, jambo, nzuri yako. That is Swahili. Okay. Sanbonani kunjani. How are you? Virise, viribo. Okay. That's Zimbabwe. Shona language. Yeah. Let's go up to Russia. Pivot. Pivot Soho, Soho. Shero sei. Shero sei. Shero sei. TK, TK. That's Kurdish language. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. For the Muslims. Okay. Kurdish language as well. Yeah, I can speak something like that. Yeah. Greeting everybody. There's no problem with that. Right. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, we also speak that. Thank you so much. Wherever you are, everybody, you're most welcome. So let's go direct to the lesson for today. And this is about BP, blood pressure. Okay? For ordinary people like us, okay? And for ordinary people like everybody else, simply say BP, meaning blood pressure or hypertension. Okay? Hypertension, meaning blood pressure. So when you go into more technical, then we say hematology. Okay? Hematology, because it's related. Hematology is the study of blood and blood related, okay, issues. Cardiovascular complications, okay, cardiovascular complications. These are topics that are so extremely important, and they are presented in medical schools in more detailed, okay, so much so that when you go to the hospital and you say you're complaining of hypertension or blood pressure, okay, the doctors, they view it in many dimensions. But in this lesson, I would like to tell you that there are basically three dimensions that doctors view when you say hypertension, BP, blood pressure. There are so many deaths that are related to hypertension, hematology, cardiovascular complications these days. Possibly after watching this show, if you are just an ordinary person, you are more likely, maybe in future, you may never maybe suffer from this problem. You may never have a dilemma when you're suffering from hypertension or blood pressure. You'll be able to manage yourself. After this video, if you watch it very well, it will be long, but if you watch it and understand it very well, you will be able to manage yourself, because the diseases that are connected to BP or hypertension, there are many, and many people die, okay, because they don't understand exactly what is happening in their body. Okay, so in this, I'll break it down to try to explain like in more comprehensive way, okay, but in a simple manner, such that even an ordinary person can understand. But we are dealing with issues that are handled, or they are taught to doctors, okay, in their colleges. This is what they learn and how they learn. What is hypertension? What is BP? What is cardiovascular complication? All these things. So, like I said, when you talk about BP, blood pressure, all right, doctors, okay, are supposed to view it in three dimensions. Okay, so doctors are supposed to view it in three dimensions. They're supposed to understand it as simple as hypertension. So when you say hypertension, it means there is some kind of tension in the body, all right? So that is directly connected to nervous system of the body, okay, or hormones, etc., etc. The reflex activities that we don't have control over, okay. Maybe the brain controls all those activities, that the signals of the body that we don't have control over. So maybe there is a complication with the nerves or body signals, right, leading into hypertension. That's why sometimes they say high blood pressure can be necessitated or can be triggered by like what you call like situations like fear, maybe situations like, what can you say, situations like dilemma, situations like stress, things like those can be necessitated or can be triggered by stress. So that's why they say this can happen. Usually they talk about the dimension of hypertension, that there is a tension in the body. That's why the BP can shoot. Okay, I will explain very well some of those things of why that happens. Then the second dimension that they see is what you call cardiovascular complication. Cardiovascular is directly the heart. Okay, when you mention cardiovascular, it means that is exactly the heart and the chambers of the heart, how it works and all that, right? There are some complications to do the functions of the heart. So those the complication, that complication can also be triggered by even the nerves themselves. It's possible, very much possible. And the other dimension is hematology. When you talk about hematology, you're talking about the blood itself. So hematology itself is a full topic that is taught in medical schools, and can involve books, volumes and volumes of books, because it involves the composition of the blood and the changes in the blood composition, etc., etc. I will explain some of this. I will explain them very well in detail as we go along. So first of all, let's go into definition of blood pressure. Okay, so blood pressure. Okay, basically, when you talk about blood pressure, so basically when we talk about blood pressure, we are talking about two major categories, okay? Systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. Systolic blood pressure and diastolic blood pressure. These are very important two elements that make blood pressure. So what is systolic blood pressure? Systolic blood pressure, in a simple, like I've said, that I need to be presenting this to so that an ordinary person can understand what all this is all about. Okay, systolic blood pressure. When you sit down, or maybe you are threatened, or you are under stress, or you have some fear, you will see your blood, you will hear your heart pumping. Okay, then it goes diddy, diddy, diddy. Okay, when the heart is making that sound, that one is called systolic. Okay, systolic pressure. That one is systolic pressure. Actually, what happens in the heart is that the heart is got muscles. Okay, those muscles, they are controlled by nerves. Okay, and there is a part in the brain that controls that part, the movement of the muscles. So the muscles are elastic. They have to they expand and contract, expand and contract, and there is speed at which they expand or contract. Okay, there are terms that are used for expansion and the contraction of the what they call contractility. Contractility. Okay, yeah. So now, so when you have fear, okay, there is a signal that is sent to the heart, okay, to move faster, okay, or to increase the speed. So that's why we say that the nerves control, or the signals or the hormones control the heart. That is a reflex action that we don't have external control over the heart when it is beeping, or the speed and the ability of the heart when it is pumping blood. What it does, the heart is just to flush off the blood, okay, and then allow more blood to come in, okay, fresh blood to come in and flush it off, okay. Blood pressure is different. Diastolic blood pressure is the relaxing now, okay. So diastolic blood pressure, we cannot hear it, okay, but there is a calculation that is made, okay, for you to understand diastolic blood pressure, okay. It's what they call a pulse, okay? Pulsing of the pulse of the blood pressure of the blood. We can hear it. Some people they press. You can press here, or they press on the hand, on the wrist, okay, to hear. Okay, let me say on the wrist to hear diastolic pressure. Okay. That one is the relaxing of the, okay, up, down, up, down. The down one is what is called diastolic, where the blood, okay, where the blood movement is kind of relaxing. That one is called diastolic, okay, pressure, diastolic pressure. So these two movements, they kind of collaborate, okay, for the flow of blood. So the whole interpretation, when the blood flushes, when the heart flushes the blood from its chambers, because the heart is got chambers and it's got valves. When it flushes the blood through the contraction of the muscles, right? The blood then into the veins, or first of all into the aorta, okay? There is also an activity that takes place for the perpetuation of the blood to go further. You see, so that does not involve enormous pressure. Okay, it just involves the contraction of and the relaxing of the relaxing of the veins. So there, that side is called, is what they call diastolic. All right, that's exactly the interpretation. It's very important to understand the difference and the collaboration. So here you used to see diastolic is directly in the heart. That's the point you should get. Directly in the heart. I mean, systolic is directly in the heart. Systolic, okay, activity happens directly in the heart. Diastolic does not happen in the heart. It happens outside the heart, where the blood is perpetuated to continue flowing, okay? Because the blood, heart can pump the blood, okay? But then what happens next? You see, it's like the blood is pumped outside the heart, yes, of course. Then what's next? The blood has to continue to be pumped out, okay, in the next chambers, where it goes into the veins and aorta and venules, okay, arteries, okay, capillaries, okay, they have to be perpetuated, and that's where diastolic takes place. So basically the difference there, okay, one major difference that you should see is that other than that there is a problem. Similarly, systolic at 120, if it is higher than that, there is a problem. If it is lower than that, there is a problem. So, but that is not the only thing that doctors measure. They would go further to check what they call pulse pressure. Okay, pulse pressure. So, with pulse pressure, so when they are calculating pulse pressure, they simply record 120 from the diastolic. Okay, subtract. Okay, 120 from the systolic, subtract 80 from the diastolic. So this 120 I'm just giving like optimum, but for a person you can read n amount. For example, you can read maybe 125, you can read 118, all right? You can read maybe it can read 115, right? That's systolic. So to find the pulse pressure, they would deduct the diastolic reading. So diastolic reading, I already said that optimum is 80, but it can be 70, it can be 50, it can be 60. So they will deduct from there. The result they get from the deduction from the mathematics, from arithmetic, that they will calculate there. For example, if we take 120 minus 8, we get 40. See, so this 40 is what is called pulse pressure. So they also measure this. They have to, because the whole body, okay, the body is not only the heart, it's not only the veins or the capillaries, okay. To get the average of the entire body, that's why I said in the beginning that the doctors would look at blood pressure in so many dimensions, not only one dimension. You see, so they have to check this average to say 40, that is pulse pressure. Okay. So that's the pulse pressure. But then they go further to understand the entire body in what is called mean arterial pressure, to understand how at every point of the body is performing in terms of the pressure. So to get this, they will take one third of the pulse pressure, okay, and then add to diastolic pressure, because diastolic is the one I said that is the relaxing one. Okay, so basically in most parts of the body, the pressure is not so much. Okay, it's likely to be minimum. So that's why they take diastolic pressure, which is 80, and then they add one third of pulse pressure. Okay, and then they come up with mean arterial pressure. to understand the entire body. So in most cases, the main arterial pressure would be 40, would be maybe 15 or 13 plus 80. Okay, and then you'll get 93, 95, 94. So sometimes when you go to hospital, maybe you would see the doctors, they will say, they will write the number 93. They would write the number 92. Okay, they will write the average. So some people tend to get confused when they get many numbers, okay, from the doctors when they are very comprehensive about the testing to find the blood pressure. So they would say 120, 80, 40, 93, and then you will be confused. What is this? Okay, so what the doctors are measuring? They are measuring systolic blood pressure, then systolic blood pressure, okay, then they are calculating to find pulse pressure, okay. After calculating pulse pressure, they are going further to calculate main arterial pressure for the entire body. Main arterial pressure for the entire body. Then they make a sum to see how much, okay. But usually in some clinics, they don't go further than that. But it's very important because, like I said before, blood pressure is multidimensional. Okay, it's just to calculate diastolic, systolic. Okay, it's very difficult to address it. It's very complicated. Okay, blood pressure is very complicated. So many people, they die because of blood pressure, because of cardiovascular or heart complications, because they don't understand, they don't know exactly what is happening in the body. They don't understand at every stage, okay, what is the situation like. So this is very important to understand together. All right. So okay, there is something that's very important. So, in a general term, blood pressure is understood from the following elements. Like I said before, systolic blood pressure, okay, diastolic blood pressure, okay, there is something also they call resistance, okay, and another thing they call blood velocity and blood viscosity. Okay, this is directly connected to what I said before, that hematology, okay, the composition of the blood itself. Okay, sometimes your body can be okay, but your blood, the composition of your blood, there is something wrong with your blood, just that, and you can develop high blood pressure because of your blood. That's why some people say, this person is okay, blood pressure is associated to maybe obesity or fat people, but then you'll find that someone is very slim but has got blood pressure. Why? Okay, this is one question that is very, very troubling. Okay, a person is slim, but he's got no problem, okay, but he's got blood pressure. Okay. Some of these things, they go as far as being connected to what we call hematology, the composition of the blood itself. There is something complicated about the blood, only the blood. You see, sometimes it's not that, but sometimes it means the vessels, blood vessels themselves, they have humps. Okay, inside the blood vessels there are some humps for some reasons. We will explain what we mean. So all this comes down what we call the final element is called, okay, the following element is called composition mechanics. Okay, composition, the body, when the body experiences blood pressure, it tries to create a composition mechanism or composition mechanics, okay, to try to solve that problem by itself. You see, so I will discuss, I'll explain this one if I have time, what the body does. okay, to try to compensate, to try to negotiate, okay, by itself. So the other elements that are associated with blood pressure are something that's called a flow, blood flow, blood speed of the blood flow or blood speed. And another one is called vessel cross section diameter. Vessel cross section diameter. Right? This has to do with the veins, the cross section of the diameter of the veins, the cross section of the diameter. So, generally, blood pressure, in more comprehensive understanding, what doctors learn in the colleges is that blood pressure is termed as the heart output, which is called cardiac output, okay, or cardiac production, okay, multiplied by total peripheral resistance. So when you say peripheral, it means all the veins, the channels, the vessels where the blood goes. Total peripheral resistance, okay, adding all the veins, the vessels, and the amount of resistance they provide, okay, to the flow of blood, okay, when multiplied by cardiac output, the power of the heart itself in pumping out the blood, okay, and that's it sums up to what is called BP. That is the more technical term, okay, the more technical term, okay, cardiac or heart output multiplied by total peripheral resistance, total vessel resistance, okay. This is understood that the vessels provide the resistance to the flow, all right. The total resistance, okay, multiplied by cardiac output is what is understood to be the general term or the technical term, okay. More general, technical together, no problem, mix it, okay, for the blood pressure. This is very important. This is very important to understand. So, okay. So, when you say cardiac output is the heart production. What affects heart production? What affects heart production? Okay, this is more connected to cardiovascular complication that I said earlier on. We're talking about the heart. So, what affects the heart? So, some of the things that affect the heart, for example, they are what they call nerve system. Nerve system, the introduction of signals, okay, to allow the muscles of the heart to work properly, okay. If there is a problem with the nerve system, definitely the heart would not manage to come out with maximum cardiac output, okay. So that is not the heart itself. The heart is fine, okay, all right. But the heart is just an organ that has to be ordered, okay. It has to get rule. It has to get commands, okay, orders from somewhere. So if there is a problem, with how the nerves, the hormones, how the nerves are working, okay, they will affect the output, cardiac output. So much so that in the end, this situation will culminate or sum up to hypertension or blood pressure. Okay, that's one most important thing. The second one is what is called the chemical composition of the blood. Okay, basically the chemical composition in this case, they emphasize, doctors when they are learning about it, they emphasize on the ions, like the availability of sodium, the availability of uh, yeah, sodium, calcium, okay, iron, okay, in the blood, the chemical composition, okay. So where there is no proper balance in the blood, this will lead to problems in the cardiac output, so much so that the heart will be pumping, but the blood would not be moving or flowing properly, and this may lead to what we call hypertension or blood pressure, okay, because the composition of the blood itself is not regular enough. There are so many ions, or there are lower ions, okay. The balance is not optimal, okay. So actually the body understands very well, okay, the proper composition of the blood for proper cardiac output. So where there is imbalance, there will be problems with the cardiac output. Okay. So yeah, the other things that affect cardiac output, including drugs. Okay. Yeah, there are drugs, maybe enhancement drugs, like energizers, any type of. There are many drugs that affect the heart. Okay, because they confuse, or they kind of generate signals in the hormones. All right, the signals that some of the signals will go to the heart. You will hear some people after taking a drug, they will be sweating. You see, why that is the case is because the hormones that are agitated, all right, and so these hormones, they go nowhere, but they're directly assigned to the heart. So how do they work? They work with the heart, but they are getting wrong signals that the person needs more energy or needs to work or to do. In the end, you'll find the person is sweating, okay, but he's not working, he's not doing anything, or whatever. So drugs also do affect cardiac output, so much so that the cardiac output would be higher or lower. Okay, the blood flow or the cardiac, the activities of the heart would be higher or lower based on the drugs. Okay. Some of these drugs can be important to the body because sometimes maybe perhaps we're dealing with the drug that is addressing a certain disease condition in the body. Yeah, it's very true. But the problem is that this drug, there is one element that is connected to a certain hormone in the body, and that hormone, okay, has got no job. It has got no other job. Its only job is to deal directly with the heart. You see, that's where the problem is. And you end up the heart. This drug creates a dilemma in the heart. Sometimes when you go to the hospital, they will tell you, "Oh, you are taking this drug. This drug is addressing this problem, but it's creating another condition." See, a condition in the body is associated with the heart, and this is very serious because it can kill the heart. You see, so this is these are some of the dilemmas why doctors spend many years in hospitals. Okay, is there are so many dilemmas with health. So sometimes we hear people, they'll be advertising that, "Oh, I cure BP, oh, I cure sugar disease, oh, just one drug, oh, you just have to pluck the leaves of mango tree and do this. Oh, me, I'm a doctor." You see, all these things happen because these people, they don't understand the complexity of health. People are not the same. Okay, people are different. Every other person is different from another one. Right? This is very important to understand because the situation that you have, okay, the disease, this condition that you have, okay, is just is not the same with what another person can. So usually what doctors have to do when they are doing a research to address a problem, they basically have to test a wider range of people on the drug. For example, the development of drugs. is done on a wider range of people because people are different. The reaction, the some disease, some drugs can agitate others and can work better in others. The situations. That's why you find in other countries they treat the same problem using other drugs. Okay, while in other countries they will be using typically different drug. Okay, this is not by mistake. It's done and backed by research, medical research, comprehensive medical research. So this is one of the reasons why doctors spend long years in college just to study one disease, just to study BP. Even what I'm talking about here is very small, okay? It's very small. What they do, what they learn there in college is more deeper than this, okay? But I'm going myself also, I'm trying to go much more deeper than that. All right. So the other element that affects cardiac output or blood heart output is what's called stroke volume. Okay, stroke volume is the volume of blood. Okay, some people have more blood than others. Okay, another element is called what is called preload. Okay, preload is the redness, okay, the redness of the heart itself, okay, to pump the blood, okay, and how much volume of the blood that is there in the chambers of the heart that has to be pumped out of the blood, okay, that one is called preload. And next to preload there is what is called afterload, okay, afterload. We'll discuss about afterload later. But there is preload and afterload. And then there is one other point that's called contractility. I mentioned this one earlier on, but I said contractility. Okay, contractility is affected by nerves, hormones, I said already, drugs, I said already about this. So resistance. Resistance is I already said that the total output, the total resistance in the body, okay, resisting the flow of blood is calculated. So it differs from one person to the other. Okay, so this affects the cardiac output. So when they measure, they find that maybe we would say in our traditional settings we say this person does not have blood, this person does not have blood, but maybe that's not true. But because the resistance of the vessels, peripheral resistance is so high in many areas of the body, so much so that the blood does not reach to some areas. Enough blood does not the blood, but enough blood does not reach to certain areas. That's why you hear in our traditional settings, someone would say that, oh, this guy, look at his eyes, they are white. Why? Because maybe he doesn't have blood. But it's not true. If they check, find that the person has got blood, enough blood. But peripheral resistance, there is a reason why there is so much resistance in the body, so much so that the blood is not flowing enough to all the major or all the parts of the body. Okay, so we talked about the blood velocity. Okay, velocity is blood viscosity. Blood viscosity. Blood viscosity is the thickness of the blood. Thickness of the blood. Some people have thicker blood than others. So let's address this. If a person has got thicker blood, okay, what would be the problem? What would be the reason? Basically, the reason is that maybe he's dehydrated. Okay, dehydration can lead to thicker blood. Okay, so it leads to a situation it leads to a situation that's called it leads to a situation called polycythemia. Okay, polycythemia. Polycythemia is where the person has got concentrated blood. Okay, so where the person has got concentrated blood, that blood when it's flowing in the vessels, okay, it does a lot of friction. Okay, so that friction ends up even producing some kind of heat and warmth. Heat. It releases, scientifically, it releases heat. So that situation alone produces higher resistance because the blood flow is reduced. So there the relationship is clear, okay, where there is higher viscosity, the blood cannot flow properly. And the doctors on this particular point, they learn what is called Poiseuille's equation or Poiseuille's theory. Okay, this deals with hematology, the viscosity of blood that affects the speed of blood or the flow of blood. So Poiseuille's equation deals with the viscosity, the thickness of blood, the length of the blood vessels, okay, up to the peripherals. Peripherals we mean the veins and all the organs that need blood, and then the radius or cross-sectional area, the radius of the blood vessels, okay, added together. So basically, the Poiseuille's equation is very simple. It's one of the most basic equations that doctors learn when dealing with hematology, cardiovascular complications, and hypertension. Poiseuille's equation. So cardiac output is affected by viscosity, and another formula that also is associated to this is the change in blood pressure, okay, and divided by the cross-section area of the vessels multiplied by normal pressure. This is very technical to understand, but it leads to understand the flow or the speed of blood in the body, and then the doctors are able to determine that this is normal or not normal. So how would this happen? Okay, this would happen due to so many reasons that we said before, okay, that direct in the blood vessels or in the heart or in the chambers themselves, okay, sometimes there would be bumps or inflammations or obstructions, okay. There will be some things that will be blocking the blood, okay. So when the blood is flowing, at some point is meeting a bump, okay, and definitely the flow is affected and the blood kind of comes back, okay. It has to start again. It is the same like a river, all right. When the river water is flowing and it's meeting like banks and is meeting rocks, okay, hitting rocks, okay, etc., etc. Basically, as a result, what will happen that the flow of water would be affected, okay. So once the flow of the water would be affected, you would see that the speed of water is not normal. So this is the same situation. So basically, these bumps, sometimes they're going to be inflammations, okay, like cancers. Okay, when you talk about inflammation, we think swellings that happen there direct in the blood vessels. Okay, sometimes it can happen even from outside. So the blood vessels, they are going through situations where, or points where there are fat deposits, okay, in the body, right? So much so that at that point the fats are obstructing or they are pressing, they are pressurizing the blood vessels, trying to squeeze them, making them narrow. Okay, so that one is what is being referred usually when you talk about a person is fat or obesity. Okay, now obesity influences or ignites high blood pressure. Okay, basically what they try to say is that obesity itself, the fat, can also obstruct, can squeeze the blood vessels. But that's not all. As blood passes through the vessels, it carries with itself, it carries some fats as well. So sometimes those fats deposits, they end up being deposited, okay, in the blood vessels, directly in the blood vessels, thereby reducing the cross-sectional area of the blood, which is the radius. Okay, so all this understanding is what comes out to be known as, to be technically understood as Poiseuille's equation. Poiseuille's equation. All right. So Poiseuille's equation is generally dealing with viscosity, length, and the obstruction in the blood. The obstructions in the blood vessels. All right. So doctors learn and understand what is called turbulent flow. Turbulent flow. Turbulent flow. So turbulent flow is where the blood vessels are squeezed, okay, at a certain point, and they tend to shoot the blood. Okay, they shoot the blood, shoot because they are squeezed at one point. Okay, not the whole body, they are flowing, but there is one point where the blood vessel, a particular blood vessel, is squeezed, and it tends to shoot the blood. Okay, shooting the blood. That also leads to blood pressure. Okay, it leads to a general condition of the blood pressure. So sometimes where they cannot understand, it is possible that the doctors can come up with a situation where they examine and find that they don't see blood pressure, right? Or they diagnose that blood pressure, but they don't understand, they seem not to understand where exactly is the source of the blood pressure, because there is no stress, there is nothing else. The conditions are not coming together, they are not adding up to a situation of blood pressure. But maybe there is somewhere at a certain point where there is an obstruction in the blood vessels, or there is an obstruction directly in the heart, or in the chambers, heart chambers, or somewhere else, or through the blood vessels. There is some blood vessels, they are squeezed somewhere, and this is leading to what is called this is leading to what is called turbulent flow. Turbulent flow. Okay, because there is obstruction somewhere, there's squeezing somewhere. So it's the same like a pipe. When you have a pipe like this, it's flowing, the water is flowing nicely, and you squeeze the pipe. Well, what will happen? You see that when you squeeze the pipe, okay, the water will be shooting. You see, be shooting. That is exactly what happens also with blood in the body. So these are more technical things that the doctors will study doctors study when it comes to trying to determine or understand situations of BP. So all right. Okay, so let's go further to compensation mechanics. The compensation mechanics, or the remedy. Okay, like I said before, that if you tend to understand this, more likely you may be able to manage your own BP very well. All right, you'll be able to manage your own BP without spending so much, like in terms of medicine doctors. So compensation mechanics, the body has its own compensation mechanics that to deal with the situation of BP. Right? For example, I mentioned the situation of ions, okay, the concentration of chemicals in the blood being a reason leading to poor cardiovascular output, or leading to irregular cardiovascular output, or leading to hypertension, or leading to problems in hematology, or hematological composition, or leading to hypertension, a general hypertension. All right. So, in this case, right, where the blood, where the main problem is blood composition or ions, basically, you just have to cut back on the chemicals. You just have to cut back on the chemicals that your body is exposed to. For example, in this case, if you are affected, or you are found to be ingesting more ions, okay, that are saturating the blood, more ions that are saturating the blood, maybe more iron, okay, because when the blood is too thick, to the extent that there are more there are more red blood cells, is also a condition. Usually we say, okay, we must have more red blood cells. That's true, okay, but where a person has excess red blood cells is also a medical condition, is a disease. Is a disease on its own. Okay. Where you have more blood cells, where you have lower blood cells, is also a condition, anemia. Okay. Is a disease as well. So the body has got a mechanism, a compensation mechanism, where it understands the optimum of how much blood cells, okay, per cubic milliliter should be, how many blood cells there should be. Okay, the body understands that, and the body has got its own nerve detectors that is able to understand that there are just too many or too much of blood cells right in the blood and have to be reduced. You see? So composition mechanics is provided there. Okay, so you can get drugs, okay, that can try to dilute the blood, make it thinner. Okay, when the blood is thicker, you can make it a little bit thinner. Okay? Not too much, because making the blood too thin is also a condition, a medical condition that will be very, very, very dangerous. So much that you can end up, you're going to end up oozing blood everywhere. You see, just because the blood is too thin. When the blood is too thin, you can end up oozing blood in the nose, and sometimes even in the eyes. Sometimes even blood can come out in the ears. All right, because the blood is too thin. When the blood is too thin, it can break through, and you will find, you have seen many situations where people ooze blood in the nose, and sometimes ooze blood in the eyes, because sometimes it's a situation where people are taking a lot of blood thinners. That's the medicine or drugs that are thinning the blood, making the blood thinner, so that the cardiac output, even if the heart is got lower power, okay, or what we call contractility, okay, ability, okay, but still can push the blood if the blood is thinner, okay, where the total peripheral resistance is higher, but the blood is thinner, okay, still the blood can flow, okay. So all these, they are interrelated, interlocked. So the compensation mechanics on this is where we say, if you have more ions or more chemicals concentrated in the blood, this kind of situation must be solved by efforts to lower or to dilute or devalue the ions or the chemical concentration in the blood. Okay. Um, let's go to the next one. Is the nerve system. What we mentioned, nerve system or contractility. So we talked about contractility is affected by nerve system and is affected by drugs, is affected by hormones, okay? Is affected by the brain itself, okay? Like we said, that the heart is not self-controlled. It is controlled by a reflex system. Is controlled by the reflex system in the body, centered in the brain itself, where the nerves or the hormones come from to control the speed, the power of contractility or of pumping the blood. So what is the compensation mechanics in a situation where the doctors diagnose that this high blood pressure condition is associated to the performance of your nervous system? Okay, you see, this is very important. Like we said before, let me repeat that. Where you have the condition of blood pressure, it may not be just because you are fat or obesity. It may not be just because you are the peripheral resistance. Okay, like mentioned before, it may not just be because your heart is weak. No, it may be, like we said before, it may be the nervous system itself. Your own nervous system is not right. There is something wrong with your nervous system. You see, it's just the nervous system, the hormones. Maybe the hormones, there is imbalance in the hormones. There is a little imbalance in the hormones. So what is the compensation mechanics? The body has got its own compensation mechanics. What to do, but you can help the body by taking drugs. That's why there are so many drugs that are engineered to deal with blood pressure. But then in this situation, you can take particular hormonal drugs or the drugs that are associated to specific nerve elements that deal with the heart itself, to enhance it, to give it a little more power, to give it a little more orders, okay, to pump more blood, okay, so that the blood, it can pump more blood. Where this is not possible, okay, there is also a way to do it, to try to strengthen the blood muscles. Okay, so these some of these are very, very, very complicated, procedures that the doctors take. Okay, and they're very, very expensive to go through, but they really take place. Okay, that's why it's very important to go for scanning. Sometimes where you have the kind of situation, you can go for scanning. They'll tell you that, oh, there is a problem with your heart, or there is this cardiac output is being affected because of this. They will really scrutinize, okay, calculate and mathematics and find the real problem. But because of other conditions that the doctors will face in their work, sometimes they don't go comprehensive. They may not go comprehensively to do this, but where they are determined to do it, they were really going to find it. They were really going to find the real problem. But like I said, all this, it shows that heart or BP or hematological problem or cardiovascular is not simple. It's very complicated. It needs comprehensive study, okay, on what exactly is the real source of hypertension in you, okay? What is really the source of high blood pressure in you? So the compensational mechanics in this case may also involve some simple things like exercising, okay? Like exercising, doing regular exercises. It's very important. The relaxing is very important, all right? Even getting plenty sleep. Sleeping enough time, but not sleeping forever. That one also affects the heart, okay? That's the problem. If you sleep too much, it also affects the heart, and it affects also the compensation mechanics. So just getting plenty sleep, all right. Sometimes even try to teach yourself to stand alone. If you can't do many exercises, all right, but you can still walk, all right. Just do some walking. If you can't, at least you can try to stand a long time. Try to teach yourself to stand a long time, all right. Yes, those are some of the things that you can do, and to try to provide your body with complete compensation mechanics, okay, to lower down the complications of hypertension, hematology, or cardiovascular problems. All right, let's go further with the compensation mechanics. All right, so um, the other thing that we talked about is uh, blood viscosity. Okay, how can you talk about how can you help the body to create a better compensation mechanics on a situation of blood viscosity? Blood viscosity. This is directly related to the contractility. All right. So basically the same thing. Maybe drinking more water or drinking less water. Okay, it depends. So that's why high blood pressure, okay, is also low blood pressure. So these two, they are the same: low blood pressure and high blood pressure. Low blood pressure and high blood pressure, meaning that the heart is pumping or a little, okay, or it's pumping hard. It doesn't mean that the heart is not working hard, but maybe the blood is too thick. If the blood is too thick, okay, the cardiac output would be seen to be lower. If it is lower, the doctor will say low blood pressure. Why? Because the cardiac output does not sum up to the optimum force that will really push the blood through. Maybe the blood is thicker. Okay, so that's why they would try to find out why that is the case, or the blood is thick itself. Okay, or the total resistance is just too high. So what should be the reason? Some of the reasons that may lead to higher total resistance would be the inflammations, like we said before. So these inflammations, usually inflammations are ignited or triggered by vitamins. Okay, so basically, one compensation mechanic about dealing with hypertension, high blood pressure, cardiovascular problems is to do with volumes of vitamins. Okay, we need to be taking many vitamin supplements where we cannot, but we can get some of those naturally. Okay, natural vitamins, where we get natural vitamins by eating balanced diet and variety of food, so much so that the body should be able to consume variety of food, because the more you take enough vitamins, okay, the body is able to fight all inflammations. Okay, usually inflammations are everywhere in the body, but when the body has got enough tools, is able to suppress or oppress inflammations directly in the blood vessels, directly in the blood valves, and be able to create a situation that's normal for the blood to flow and for the heart to pump the blood and everything to be perfectly normal. That's why you see some people tell you that high blood pressure is possible to cure high blood pressure even without hospital. Okay, it's possible simply by understanding vitamins. Okay, understanding natural vitamins, understanding the vitamins that you can buy in the hospitals. Okay, you see that your blood pressure can lower itself. Okay, where there is an imbalance of blood pressure can be a problem. Even the intake of food. Okay, food supplemented diets. Okay, taking more fiber food, okay, is very important because it cleans out the body. And some things like milk is very important. Have the time to take food like milk. It's very important. It helps to balance up the pH, which is the pH acidity of the blood. It's very important to do that. Okay. So sometimes people say, no, eating milk is for babies. Yes, but sometimes it's very important because there are so many hormones that need milk. Okay, so milk itself enhances the activities of hormones, the balances of chemicals in the blood, etc., etc. And that when the blood is flowing, it also cures the inflammations and creating the proper cross-sectional area of the vessels and creating the best of the best peripheral resistance. Okay, peripheral resistance. So peripheral resistance does not have to disappear. It must be there, but must not be too high or too low. That's where the problem is. Okay, it must not be too high, but it must not be too low. Peripheral resistance is very important because it also helps the blood, the body to be able to push the blood to other peripherals. You see, like we said before, that when you press the pipe, the blood will shoot and it will go a longer distance. All right. So it's like a pipe. When you press the pipe, you see the water will shoot. So that is very important. So in some instances, like for example, in the capillary exchange points, the points of capillary exchange, where the capillaries exchange the blood with the venules or veins. This is very important. These are some of the very technical arteries and arterioles. Okay. So where there is exchange, the blood is very low. Okay. The point of exchange is very low. Where the blood, like there are points where the blood exchange from this side going this side, this side going this side, and that exchange happens via where the blood is kind of sieved. Okay, the highly concentrated blood is sieved, and the lower concentrated blood is left to go through to the other side. In those points, there is no direct connection. There is no direct connection, right? So because there is no direct connection, the flow of the blood is the lowest, very low, but blood flows to this side. Okay, because there must be an exchange of blood, but that kind of exchange is in such a way that the blood that is this side and the one that is this side would not be the same after the process is done. Okay, because there is a process of sieving. Okay, the blood is sorted out because this side. So because this other side needs very clean blood, so this side the blood is dirty. Okay, so it has to be sieved and has to be clean to go this side. So that one is called capillary exchange. Like I said before, I'm trying to explain it in a way that even an ordinary person in the street can understand what I'm talking about, and doctors, okay, who are studying this can also get the point that I'm talking about. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I know what I'm talking about. So in that kind of situation, there should be good balance there should be good balance in the chemical composition of the blood and viscosity. So the hormones do affect the cardiac output, and they do affect the performance of the heart itself. Okay, they do affect even contractility and even the resistance. Okay, the total resistance of the peripherals, even the perfusion of the blood is affected. The hormones do, all the nerves do, all the blood vessels, they are they're built with hormones, okay, or detectors. They are detectors. Oh, the whole body is called detectors, okay. Where the blood, the hormones are able to to reach to every part of the. So when the blood is flowing, it's full of those elements. Wants everything that's necessary. So sometimes, due to poor diet, okay, poor diet leads to those conditions. And the other conditions you can cut back to create a proper compensation mechanics is cutting back to elements like sugars, okay, salts, okay. You can cut back. I'm not saying to completely stop, but where it is necessary to stop, you can stop completely. Like calcium, right? They are important, but sometimes you can cut back. But in a situation where you cannot stop, you can minimize. Where you cannot minimize, you can create a variety, okay, where you can create a time of intake, and other times you can give yourself a holiday that you don't take those particular elements of food stuffs because of those situations. Usually, if you are lucky enough, when you get the doctors, they do comprehensive study of your body, or actually you know that you have BP, high blood pressure, okay. But like I said, there are three dimensions: hypertension, normal hypertension, hematology to do with blood composition, and the cardiovascular that has to do with the heart. So where the doctor do study and they come up with the proper reason why you have that kind of condition in your body, and they explain to you that, okay, you have a situation of the situation of high red blood cells, or you have high viscosity of blood, or you have lower viscosity blood, your blood is thinner, all right, where they explain to you very comprehensively, and you will be able to cut back or to reduce. You'll be able to reduce, okay, the element that is triggering, that is a culprit for your condition. So the problem is the dilemma. There's so many dilemmas associated to high blood pressure. For example, where you have high blood pressure, and then you happen to, because it is well known that sugary foods, okay, they are sugary foods, they are better, okay, compared to salty foods when it comes to high blood pressure. But then when you have a condition of sugar, like diabetes, then it becomes a dilemma that you have to consume. For example, most of the medication and drugs or tablets that address hypertension, usually they are sugary. Okay, they have some sugars. Okay, because that's how they try to harmonize the heart. Okay, but when you have a condition of sugar problem, then that becomes more complicated, because you have a sugar problem, that is diabetes, and definitely you can't take high blood pressure medication, because the high blood pressure medication contains sugars, okay, that harmonize the heart. You see, so here you need some sugars that should lower down there, that should harmonize the heart, that should compensate, okay, the high blood pressure problem. But the problem you have diabetes, okay, the diabetes that is affected by sugar as well. So here is the situation, because when you have diabetes, it means that you must be consuming at least some salts. All right? Maybe you should be consuming some salts. All right? But then the salts affect high blood pressure. So this is a kind of dilemma, very, very difficult dilemma, because this thing affects this, okay, and this thing affects this. So you have this condition and this one, okay. So you need this to address this. But the problem with this one is will trigger this. So that's one big problem with where you have a dilemma of drugs. So that's why doctors spend years and years in colleges to study the dilemmas of drugs. Okay, the presentation of drugs to patients. Okay, how best would they present particular drugs to patients when there is a problem with that particular patient and the condition that he has. Okay, the condition that is an enemy to that particular drug as well. So, in a situation of three conditions of a person with three conditions, a person with multiple conditions, one, two, or three conditions, the conditions that contradict one another. So, those are the dilemmas that doctors go through, trying to study and trying to solve those problems. So, in summary, okay, in summary for everything that I said, in general term, BP, okay, high blood pressure is viewed in three dimensions, more dimensions, but in this case, in my presentation here, I'm saying three dimensions, okay? General hypertension, all right, or hematological problem, all right, or cardiovascular complication. So general hypertension, it means that there is just tension to do with maybe the nerves or situation in the body or somewhere else, all right? Now, hematological problem has to do with the blood itself. The blood itself is the one that is affected. The blood is got a problem. The blood only is got a problem. All right. Cardiovascular has to do with the heart. The heart is the one that has the problem, not the blood, not the general tension or whatever. Okay. So, like I said before, so high blood pressure is calculated from systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure, blood flow, cross-sectional area, resistance, blood viscosity, all right? And the blood pressure in general or technical term, make it both, no problem, is what can be understood as cardiac output multiplied by total peripheral resistance, okay? So there you get the volume of the hypertension or BP, all right? So we talked about hormones, ions, okay? The volume, we talked about the preload, okay? The liters, okay? And I talked about the contraction of the heart muscles and everything. And I did not skip the most important point, viscosity of the blood. And viscosity, I said there is a formula that doctors go through, and this formula, they learn it very comprehensively. If you are studying medicine, you can try to Google or try to search for this formula and understood very well the history to this formula by Poisson's equation. What is called Poisson's equation. It talks about the viscosity, the length of the blood vessels, and it goes further to multiply, divide, etc., etc. It helps the doctors. So I talked about the calculation of blood pressure, that systolic blood pressure is determined 120, okay, by the readings of 120, and then diastolic, they check the readings up to 80, all right? But that's not the only thing. They go further, the doctors go further to check the pace rate or the pace pressure. The pace pressure is determined by subtraction of systolic and diastolic to get pace pressure. Pace pressure usually can go up to 40, I said 40, right? Then there is what is called mean arterial pressure, the entire body, mean peripheral arterial pressure, okay, which is the last calculation that doctors make to determine high blood pressure for the entire body. There, they calculate 1/3 of base pressure, okay, added to diastolic only, added to diastolic readings, and it gives you what is called mean arterial pressure, and that mean arterial pressure would go up to 93, 94, 92, something like that. Thank you very much for this presentation. Thank you for watching this video. If you have comments, you can make comments on my video, and I promise that in future I will be making manuscripts for videos like this, very comprehensive, very important, that can be even watched by students in medical schools, okay, to understand the three and multiple dimensions of blood pressure, hypertension, hematology, and cardiovascular. Thank you so much. like my channel, subscribe, and follow me. Thank you so much.